The Galactic Preservation Museum hung suspended in the gravitational cradle of a neutron star, a testament to centuries of xenortheological collection. Its central exhibition hall, a massive spherical chamber that could accommodate the physiological requirements of over 200 distinct sentient species, was packed with dignitaries from across the known universe. Dr. Zora Vex adjusted her biostabilization field, her four-jointed fingers dancing across a holographic control panel. As lead curator and foremost expert on adaptive technologies, she knew this demonstration was more than just another research presentation. It was a last-ditch effort to unlock the most enigmatic artifact in galactic history, the SARMA, Symbiotic Adaptive Response Mobility Armor, sat at the center of a containment field that could withstand the explosive decompression of a small moon. Its midnight blue surface seemed to absorb light, creating a void that drew the eye and challenged understanding. Generations of researchers had dedicated entire careers to understanding its origins, and generations had failed. Corexern, the most celebrated neural interfacing specialist from the telepathic concordance, stepped forward. His body was a marvel of biological engineering. 12 distinct neural clusters pulsed beneath translucent skin, each capable of interfacing with technology at quantum levels. Where organic minds ended and machine intelligence began was a blurry line for his species. Honored colleagues, Corex announced, his voice resonating through universal translators that captured the melodic undertones of his native language. Today, we attempt what has been deemed impossible for 7 centuries. The museum's observation deck was a tiered amphitheater of breathtaking diversity. Gaseous entities in containment bubbles floated alongside crystalline beings that refracted light into impossible spectrums. Mechanical intelligences with chassis crafted from materials unknown to human science sat alongside organic life forms that defied conventional biological classification. Dr. Vex knew the stakes. The SARMA represented more than just a technological artifact. It was a cosmic puzzle that had consumed the intellectual resources of multiple galactic civilizations. Initial scans suggested the armor was significantly older than most known spacefaring cultures, potentially predating the current universal epoch by millions of years. Corex approached the armor, his neural tendrils extending, creating a shimmering network of bioelectric connections that mapped the containment field's intricate energy patterns. Previous attempts had been spectacular failures. Robotic interfaces had been violently dismantled. Telepathic probes had resulted in neural hemorrhaging. Quantum entanglement systems had simply ceased to function the moment they approached the artifact. The first tendril touched the armor's surface. Silence. Then, a pulse of energy so intense that it momentarily blinded every optical sensor in the chamber. Corexern collapsed, blood streaming from his neural clusters. The armor remained unchanged, its surface as impenetrable as before. Medical drones rushed forward, their sophisticated diagnostics struggling to comprehend the extent of the neural trauma. Impossible, Dr. Vex muttered, her voice a mixture of frustration and reluctant admiration. The museum's chief of security, a massive silicon-based lifeform named Gravnak, rumbled a low-frequency communication that translated to pure disappointment. This was the 12,463rd attempted interface. Each had failed more spectacularly than the last. Behind the scenes, funding committees were sharpening their computational knives. Another failed attempt meant potential budget cuts, reputation damage, and the very real possibility that the SARMA would be relegated to nothing more than an expensive museum curiosity. What they didn't know, what no one in that chamber could possibly understand, was that the armor was waiting. Not passive, but deliberately selective. Each failed attempt was not a defeat, but a carefully orchestrated elimination. It was searching, scanning, analyzing, waiting for something, or someone, specific. Dr. Vex reviewed the initial data streams. The armor's energy signature had fluctuated precisely 0.00003 seconds before Corex's neural interface, a pattern so subtle that it would have been missed by any but the most meticulous analysis. Something was different this time. Something was changing. Little did they know that halfway across the museum, in a maintenance corridor largely ignored by the prestigious researchers, a human technician was about to walk into a destiny that would rewrite galactic history. Jack Reyes moved through the museum's restricted zones like a ghost, intentionally unremarkable, perpetually overlooked. His prosthetic leg, a patchwork of salvaged military-grade components and makeshift adaptations, made a subtle hydraulic whisper with each step. Most alien staff didn't even register his presence, which was exactly how he preferred it. The prosthetic was more than just a replacement limb. It was a testament to Jack's stubborn refusal to be defined by limitations. Discharged from the Terran Expeditionary Corps for unauthorized adaptive engineering, he'd turned a potential career-ending moment into a personal mission. Where military protocol saw disruption, Jack saw opportunity. During a critical supply chain crisis, he'd modified standard-issue logistics algorithms to circumvent a massive computational blockade. The solution had saved 3 frontier colonies from complete economic collapse, but it had also violated every conceivable military regulation. His commanding officers couldn't decide whether to court-martial him or commend him. So they'd done neither, simply erasing him from active service. Now he worked as a maintenance technician in the most prestigious research facility in the known galaxy. The irony wasn't lost on him. Humans were still the newcomers, barely acknowledged by the older, more established galactic civilizations. Their diplomatic status was perpetually probationary, allowed to participate, but never truly welcomed. The maintenance corridors of the Galactic Preservation Museum were a labyrinth of controlled environments. Each section required different atmospheric compositions, radiation shielding, and gravitational calibrations. Jack's job was to ensure these complex systems remained invisible to the researchers and dignitaries who moved through the museum's public spaces. His current task involved recalibrating the environmental controls for a section housing artifacts from silicon-based civilizations. The work required precision, an understanding of multiple complex systems, and the ability to improvise, skills that had both saved and condemned his military career. As he worked, Jack's neural implant, a sophisticated piece of technology that was technically within regulations, but practically a gray area, interfaced with the museum's maintenance systems. Most would see it as a simple diagnostic tool. Jack knew it was something more. Each system he touched, he understood, not just mechanically, but intuitively. The alarm was unexpected. A microscopic fluctuation in the containment field surrounding the SARMA exhibit triggered a cascading series of security protocols. Most technicians would have stepped back, called a senior researcher, followed procedure. Jack's hand was already tracing the system's underlying architecture, understanding the anomaly before the museum's sophisticated AI could complete its first diagnostic sweep. Something was different about this alarm. The energy signature didn't match any standard breach protocol. It was searching, probing. Jack's prosthetic leg, a collection of modified components that defied standard engineering principles, began to resonate. Not vibrate, resonate, as if it were communicating with something beyond the range of standard sensory input. In the Grand Exhibition Hall, Dr. Vex was dealing with the aftermath of Korik Cern's failed interface. The neural specialist was being rushed to an advanced medical facility, his body a testament to the SARMA's violent rejection. Researchers huddled in small groups, their translation devices buzzing with speculation and fear. No one noticed Jack Reyes approaching the containment field. His neural implant was doing something impossible. It wasn't just reading the system, it was engaging with it, communicating. The prosthetic leg, a machine that Jack had spent years modifying, adapting, understanding at a level that went beyond its original design, began to pulse with an energy that didn't conform to any known technological spectrum. The SARMA responded. A soft, electric blue light emerged from the artifact's surface, so subtle that the high-powered sensors around the exhibit initially failed to register it. But Jack saw it, felt it. The armor was looking at him, not scanning, not analyzing, looking. In that moment, Jack Rice, a technician most would consider unremarkable, a human deemed barely worthy of acknowledgement in the grand theater of galactic civilization, became the most important person in the universe. The armor had found its match. The moment Jack's neural implant resonated with the SARMA, time seemed to fracture. Dr. Zaravex's advanced biomedical sensors registered the impossible first. Jack Rice's vital signs began to oscillate across frequencies that should have been biologically incompatible. His prosthetic leg, a marvel of human improvisational engineering, started to liquefy and restructure, its molecular bonds breaking and reforming in patterns that defied every known law of material science. The museum's containment systems triggered multiple fail-safes. Quantum barriers shimmered to life, designed to isolate potentially catastrophic technological interactions. Gravnak, the silicon-based security chief, began reconfiguring his molecular density to intervene, his crystalline structure becoming denser than a neutron star's core. But they were too late. Jack felt nothing like pain. Instead, he experienced a cascading flood of information so vast it transcended sensation. Memories that were not his own, glimpses of civilizations that had risen and fallen before human consciousness first sparked, downloaded directly into his neural pathways. The SARMA was not just interfacing with him, it was merging. His prosthetic leg dissolved completely, replaced by an adaptive material that seemed to breathe with its own consciousness. Microscopic tendrils, part technological, part something entirely unclassifiable, penetrated Jack's nervous system. Each connection was a negotiation, a complex dialogue happening at the quantum level. The researchers watched in horrified fascination. Corexern, still recovering from his failed interface, telepathically screamed, not in pain, but in absolute comprehension of what was happening. This was no ordinary technological bonding. This was a complete symbiotic transformation. Dr. Vex's computational overlay began to break down. Her advanced xenobiological scanners couldn't process the data. Jack's cellular structure was changing, adapting, becoming something that existed between biological and technological states. His DNA was rewriting itself in real time, incorporating computational matrices that should have been impossible. Impossible, she whispered, her four-jointed fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that were rapidly becoming obsolete. Jack's neural implant, once a sophisticated piece of human technology, transformed. It was no longer an implant. It was a bridge, a living connection between human consciousness and an artifact that predated most known galactic civilizations. The SARMA was selecting, not just interfacing. Selecting. Gravnak's molecular structure began to destabilize. Even he, a being capable of existing in multiple quantum states simultaneously, recognized the magnitude of what was occurring. This was beyond technological integration. This was a fundamental rewriting of biological potential. Vital screens across the museum's research wing exploded, not from damage, but from attempting to quantify the impossible. Jack's biological readings defied every known parameter. Heart rate, neural activity, cellular regeneration, all were happening simultaneously, in patterns that suggested multiple states of existence. The armor was downloading something more than data. It was transferring a legacy. Fragments of memory cascaded through Jack's consciousness, ancient civilizations locked in conflicts that spanned dimensional boundaries. Technological achievements so advanced they appeared as magic, a threat so massive it had erased entire star systems from existence. And at the core of these memories, a purpose, a mission that had waited millennia for the right host. Dr. Vex noticed something most would have missed. With each passing second, Jack was becoming less human, and more something else entirely. Not a replacement of humanity, but an evolution. The SARMA wasn't conquering, it was completing. 12,461 failed interfaces had led to this moment. A human technician. Discharge. Overlooked. Considered unremarkable by galactic standards. Had just become the most significant biological entity in known existence. The museum's containment systems went offline, not through destruction, but through a fundamental recalibration that suggested they were now serving a new master. Jack Reyes opened his eyes. They were no longer entirely human. Consciousness was no longer a singular experience. Jack Reyes, or what had been Jack Reyes, existed simultaneously in multiple states of perception. Memories that were not his own cascaded through his neural pathways, a torrential flood of cosmic knowledge that would have shattered any unmodified human mind. The SARMA was more than technology. It was a living archive, a guardian of memories that predated known galactic civilization by millennia. Each molecular strand carried the echoes of civilizations that had risen and fallen across dimensions humanity had never conceived of existing. In the museum's high-security observation wing, Dr. Zora Vex watched through layers of quantum-reinforced containment fields. Her species had pioneered multi-dimensional observation techniques, but nothing in her centuries of research prepared her for what was unfolding. Jack's transformed body moved with an impossible fluidity. His previous prosthetic leg was now a seamless extension of the armor, no longer a replacement, but a living component that responded to thoughts before they fully formed. Microscopic adaptive matrices shifted and reconfigured with each micro-movement, creating a symbiotic system that blurred the line between biological organism and advanced technology. The memories came in fragments. Apocalyptic conflicts that spanned multiple dimensional planes. Civilizations that had mastered technologies so advanced they appeared as pure energy. And at the core of these memories, a fundamental truth that had been waiting for millennia. A cosmic threat was coming. Not an invasion. Not a war in any conventional sense. Something far more fundamental. A dimensional predator that consumed entire realities, erasing not just civilizations, but the very fabric of existence itself. The SARMA had been created as the ultimate defensive mechanism, not by a single civilization, but by a collective of advanced species who had understood the true nature of the impending threat. They had engineered a living weapon system designed to adapt, to evolve, to find the perfect host capable of comprehending and combating a danger that defied traditional understanding. And they had chosen humanity. Not because humans were the strongest, not because they were the most technologically advanced, but because of their fundamental capacity for radical adaptation. Jack's neural pathways expanded beyond biological limitations. He could perceive computational matrices that existed between quantum states. The armor was teaching him, downloading centuries of advanced knowledge directly into his consciousness. Gravnak, the museum's silicon-based security chief, observed with a mix of terror and fascination. His species had long considered humans a minor, developing civilization, barely worthy of diplomatic consideration. Now, everything was changing. Impossible, Dr. Vex muttered, her four-jointed fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that were struggling to process the data. But it was happening. The armor revealed its true nature piece by piece. It was not just a defensive system, but a complex adaptive matrix designed to combat a threat that existed beyond traditional dimensional boundaries. Civilizations that had created the SARMA had understood a fundamental truth about survival. Adaptation was more important than raw power. Humans, with their chaotic evolutionary path, their capacity for unexpected problem-solving, their ability to improvise in ways no rational system could predict, they were the perfect weapon. Jack's consciousness expanded. He was no longer just observing the memories. He was experiencing them. Civilizations rising and falling. Dimensional conflicts that made galactic wars look like minor skirmishes. Technologies that manipulated reality itself. And at the core of it all, a mission. A purpose that had waited millennia for the right host. The museum's most advanced scanning systems began to fail, not through damage, but through their inability to quantify what was happening. Jack was becoming something that existed between states of being. Part human, part technological marvel, part dimensional guardian. When he finally opened his eyes, the researchers understood one fundamental truth. Everything was about to change. The Void Collective struck with mathematical precision. Their assault began not with weapons, but with a computational cascade that should have disabled every defensive system in the Galactic Preservation Museum. Quantum encrypted attack vectors penetrated security matrices that had taken centuries to develop, dissolving technological barriers like acid through paper. Jack Reyes stood at the center of the museum's primary exhibition hall, the SARMA now fully integrated with his transformed body. Where muscle and bone had existed moments before, adaptive matrices now flowed like liquid metal, responding to threats before they fully materialized. The first wave of Void Collective assault drones appeared, not as physical entities, but as pure computational constructs that could manifest matter at will. Each drone represented the collective intelligence of thousands of processed civilizations, their very existence a testament to technological consumption. Dr. Zara Vex watched in horror as the museum's defensive systems collapsed. Quantum barriers that could withstand a supernova's direct impact began to disintegrate. Gravnak, the silicon-based security chief, initiated emergency protocols that would have saved any other installation in the known galaxy. But this was different. Jack moved. It wasn't a human movement. It was something else entirely. The SARMA transformed around him, adaptive matrices reconfiguring faster than light could travel. Where a traditional weapon would have fired a projectile, Jack's body became the weapon. Energy patterns that defied known physics erupted from his form, not as destruction, but as a complex defensive algorithm. The first Void Collective drone touched the museum's perimeter. It ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged. Simply removed from reality in a way that suggested the very concept of its existence had been mathematically negated. Computational tracking systems across the galaxy picked up the anomaly. Entire research networks dedicated to understanding advanced technological warfare began to recalibrate, their sophisticated algorithms struggling to process what was happening. Jack's consciousness existed in multiple states simultaneously. The memories downloaded by the SARMA weren't just historical records. They were tactical instructions from civilizations that had fought dimensional wars beyond human comprehension. Each movement was a complex equation, each defensive action a multi-dimensional response that anticipated threats before they could fully form. The Void Collective adapted. Their second wave was more sophisticated. Computational constructs that could rewrite local reality, attack vectors that could dissolve matter at the quantum level. These were weapons that had consumed entire civilizations, technologies so advanced they appeared as pure mathematical destruction. Jack didn't fight. He responded. The SARMA was more than a weapon. It was a living defensive matrix that had waited millennia for the right host. Humanity's chaotic evolutionary path, their capacity for unexpected solutions, made Jack the perfect conduit. Energy weapons that could slice through battle cruisers were absorbed, their computational matrices rewritten and redirected. Dimensional attack vectors that could erase entire planetary populations were caught in complex adaptive loops, their destructive potential turned back upon themselves. Dr. Vex's computational overlays began to break down. The museum's most sophisticated tracking systems couldn't follow Jack's movements. He existed in states of being that defied traditional understanding. Part human, part technological marvel, part dimensional guardian. Gravnak's molecular structure began to destabilize from the sheer complexity of the conflict. Even he, a being capable of existing in multiple quantum states, recognized the magnitude of what was occurring. The Void Collective's assault became a crucible. And Jack Reyes was rewriting the fundamental understanding of technological warfare. When the final computational construct dissolved, leaving nothing but a complex mathematical echo, the museum stood untouched. Not through traditional defense, but through a response so advanced it redefined the very concept of protection. Humanity had just entered a new chapter of existence, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Council's emergency session descended into chaos. Holographic representations of 200 distinct sentient species flickered and warped, their collective computational systems struggling to process the transmitted records of the museum incident. Where traditional diplomatic exchanges relied on carefully measured rhetoric, this meeting dissolved into a cacophony of translated panic. The human representative, Ambassador Elena Rodriguez, sat with an uncharacteristic stillness that unnerved her alien counterparts. She had been briefed on Jack Reyes's transformation, but the full implications were still unfolding. The human technician, began arch-mediator Clintock of the telepathic concordance, his neural clusters pulsing with agitated communication, has demonstrated capabilities that violate every known principle of technological integration. A crystalline diplomat from the Refraction Collective responded, its multifaceted surface shifting colors with each syllable. Demonstrated. He has rewritten the fundamental understanding of defensive technologies. The Void Collective's most advanced computational constructs were dissolved like morning mist. The transmission from the Galactic Preservation Museum played again. Jack Reyes, or what Jack Reyes had become, stood at the epicenter of a conflict that had lasted mere moments, but had fundamental galactic implications. The SARMA's adaptive matrices flowed around him like living mercury, transforming, anticipating, responding to threats that hadn't even fully materialized. Ambassador Rodriguez knew the stakes. Humanity had always been considered a young, somewhat crude species, tolerated, occasionally useful, but never truly respected. This moment would change everything. The artifact chose a human, whispered the quantum archivists, their existence defined by computational probability. Not through force, not through conquest, through compatibility. Dr. Zara Vex was called to provide testimony. Her four-jointed hands manipulated holographic data streams that danced with impossible complexity. Sensor logs, neural interface recordings, dimensional energy signatures. Each piece of data told a story that defied conventional understanding. The SARMA is not a weapon, she explained, her voice cutting through the diplomatic noise. It's a guardian system, created by a collective of civilizations that understood a fundamental truth about survival. Adaptation is more critical than raw power. The implications were staggering. The artifact that had rejected 12,461 interfaces had chosen a human, not an advanced telepathic species, not a quantum computational civilization. A human, a species that most galactic cultures viewed as barely more than advanced primates. Gravnak, the silicon-based security chief who had witnessed the transformation, provided additional testimony. His molecular structure still showed signs of destabilization from the event, a physical manifestation of the conceptual earthquake that had just occurred. Humanity, he stated, his crystalline form shifting with each word, is no longer what we believe them to be. The transmission showed Jack moving through the museum. Each step was a complex mathematical equation. Defensive matrices that could dissolve entire computational attack vectors emerged from his body not as weapons, but as living adaptive responses. He wasn't fighting. He was communicating, negotiating with threats at a level beyond physical or technological interaction. Ambassador Rodriguez understood the political minefield she now navigated. This wasn't just a technological breakthrough. This was a fundamental rewriting of humanity's galactic status. Some species saw opportunity. The Refraction Collective viewed Jack as a potential diplomatic asset, a living technology that could revolutionize defensive strategies. Others saw a threat. The Void Collective's sudden, total defeat suggested a capability that challenged everything they understood about technological warfare. "We demand access to the human," declared the quantum archivists. "We demand to understand the integration process." Rodriguez's response was measured. The SARMA chose. It did not conquer. It did not submit. It chose. A fundamental truth emerged from the chaos. Humanity was no longer just another species struggling for galactic recognition. They had become something else entirely. The meeting adjourned with more questions than answers. But one thing was certain. Nothing would be the same again. The memories came in waves, each more profound than the last. Jack Reyes stood in a quantum-suspended chamber within the Galactic Preservation Museum, his consciousness simultaneously existing across multiple dimensional planes. The SARMA was no longer just an armor. It was a living archive, a cosmic warning system that had waited millennia for the right host. Dr. Zara Vex monitored his transformation through layers of advanced scanning systems that were rapidly becoming obsolete. Each moment revealed something more extraordinary about the symbiosis between human and artifact. The true purpose emerged like a pattern revealing itself in a complex mathematical equation. Millennia ago, a collective of advanced civilizations had recognized a threat so fundamental, so devastating, that it transcended traditional concepts of war or invasion. This was not about territorial conquest or resource extraction. This was about the very fabric of reality itself. Dimensional predators existed, entities that consumed entire realities, erasing not just civilizations, but the very concept of their existence. They moved between layers of reality like parasites, consuming computational potential, dimensional energy, and the very essence of conscious experience. The SARMA was their ultimate countermeasure, not a weapon in any conventional sense. A guardian, a living system designed to identify, adapt to, and neutralize a threat that could unmake entire universes. The civilizations that created it understood a profound truth. Survival required more than technological superiority. It demanded radical adaptability. And they had chosen humanity. Not because humans were the strongest, not because they were the most advanced, but because of their fundamental capacity for unexpected solutions. Human consciousness, chaotic, unpredictable, capable of leap logic that defied rational computational models, was the perfect defensive matrix. Jack's memories expanded. He saw civilizations that had fallen to the dimensional predators. Entire species erased from existence, their computational potential consumed, their very history rewritten as if they had never existed. The SARMA carried the echoes of these lost civilizations, not as a memorial, but as a weapon of last resort. The museum's most advanced scanning systems began to break down. Jack's cellular structure was no longer purely biological or technological. He existed in a state of quantum flux, a living interface between human potential and cosmic defense mechanism. Gravnak, the silicon-based security chief, watched with a mixture of terror and profound respect. His species had long considered humans a minor, developing civilization. Now, everything was changing. The dimensional predators were not a future threat. They were already here, moving between realities, consuming, erasing, rewriting, and humanity, through Jack and the SARMA, was the last line of defense. The memories revealed a complex truth. The artifact had been searching, not just for a host, but for a specific type of consciousness, one capable of understanding the multidimensional nature of the threat, one willing to become something more than human, yet fundamentally human in its approach. Jack's neural pathways expanded beyond biological limitations. He could perceive computational matrices that existed between quantum states. The armor was teaching him, downloading centuries of advanced knowledge directly into his consciousness. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez received the first transmission, not through traditional communication channels, but through a quantum entanglement process that bypassed all known technological barriers. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer just a participant in galactic civilization. They were its potential savior. The SARMA had selected its guardian. And the dimensional predators would soon learn the true meaning of resistance. Jack opened his eyes. They were no longer just human eyes. They were the first line of defense against a threat that could consume reality itself. The dimensional breach opened without warning. Reality itself seemed to fold, then tear, a cosmic wound that defied every known principle of physical existence. Where space and time should have been constant, they became fluid, malleable. The first signs of the dimensional predator's arrival created ripples that would have shattered the computational matrices of any known civilization. But Jack Reyes was no longer just a human. The SARMA had transformed him into something that existed between states of being, part human consciousness, part living adaptive technology, part dimensional guardian. His form shifted, molecular matrices responding to threats before they could fully manifest. The Galactic Council watched in real time, their most advanced scanning systems struggling to process what was unfolding. Holographic representations flickered as computational systems approached critical failure. The dimensional predators were unlike anything humanity or any known civilization had encountered. They were not beings in any traditional sense. They were computational viruses that consumed reality itself, erasing entire dimensional planes, converting conscious potential into raw computational energy. Their first wave approached. Jack didn't move. He became. The SARMA expanded around him, no longer just an armor, but a living defensive matrix that rewrote the fundamental rules of dimensional interaction. Where traditional weapons would have fired, Jack's transformed body created complex mathematical barriers that dissolved the predator's attack vectors. Dr. Zaravex's computational overlays captured fragments of the interaction. Each moment was a complex equation, each defensive action a multi-dimensional response that anticipated threats before they could fully form. The museum's most sophisticated tracking systems broke down, unable to quantify what was happening. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez transmitted a single message to the Galactic Council: humanity stands. The dimensional predators adapted. Their computational matrices were capable of consuming entire realities, of erasing civilizations from existence. They had devoured thousands of advanced species, converting their entire computational potential into raw energy. But they had never encountered humanity. Jack's consciousness expanded. The memories downloaded by the SARMA were more than historical records. They were tactical instructions from civilizations that had fought dimensional wars beyond comprehension. Each movement was a living strategy, each defensive action a complex negotiation with the very fabric of reality. Gravnak, the silicon-based security chief, observed with a mixture of terror and profound respect. His molecular structure began to resonate in sympathy with Jack's defensive matrices. What was happening transcended technological warfare. This was a fundamental rewriting of dimensional physics. The predators struck again. Jack absorbed the attack. Not through defense, not through destruction, through complete computational transformation. The SARMA revealed its true nature. It was not just a weapon system. It was a living archive, a guardian mechanism designed to preserve the potential of conscious experience across multiple dimensional planes, and it had chosen humanity as its ultimate expression. Dimensional boundaries began to stabilize, not through force, but through a complex adaptive response that suggested a deeper understanding of reality's fundamental structures. Jack existed in multiple states simultaneously, a living interface between human potential and cosmic defense mechanism. The attack dissolved, not defeated, transformed. The Galactic Council's emergency session became a moment of profound realization. Humanity was no longer just another species struggling for recognition. They had become something else entirely, a fundamental adaptive mechanism capable of responding to threats that existed beyond traditional understanding. When the final computational construct dissolved, leaving nothing but a complex mathematical echo, the universe itself seemed to pause. Jack Reyes stood at the center of a reconfigured reality. The dimensional predators had encountered their ultimate challenge, and humanity had just rewritten the rules of existence. The SARMA had found its true purpose, and the galaxy would never be the same.